So thank you very much for asking me to come along tonight. It was a great, I'm not sure, someone said, oh, you're talking about energy tonight, and it's not particularly about energy, it's about sort of larger policy approaches, or more actually what I'm doing in my life, which is very much focusing on how to accelerate climate change action, positive climate change action as much as I can. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And part of my journey at the moment is just, I suppose, becoming increasingly aware of the incredible knowledge and experience that our Indigenous custodians have, and how we have virtually totally ignored them, and how much we need to change that and address that, and really learn from them in looking after the world and being in a much better place in a general sense. So, I don't know why this. So, who I am. Graham gave you a small introduction. I've been doing a lot of work in the biophilic design space, and I think that part of that is we need to actually understand who we are by the places that we've been in that have shaped, the physical places that have shaped us. I was actually born in Grafton on the banks of the mighty Clarence River, and when I was 3 years old we moved to Sydney, and I grew up in and around Port Jackson in the waterways and in the bushlands that we are so lucky to be able to enjoy. And so water is something that really, really shapes me and really makes me feel great. And this was a particular place down at Balmoral Beach where we often went as kids and sort of hung out in that place of great shelter, but with wonderful prospect and also the water. So to me, that's something that gives me great, it makes me feel really good when I need to go somewhere, I go to the water. So for the last year, I've actually been transitioning, or last year and a half, and a few people think that I have retired. I have not retired. I have just transitioned, and part of what I'm talking about tonight is why, and then what I'm transitioning to. So I think we live in really scary times, and I probably am a bit too invested in Facebook and other places which a lot of these clips are coming from. But, the world is in a perilous situation. We've got a federal government that just doesn't get climate change and is doing nothing serious about it as we are burning. We've got unbelievable bushfires happening all over the place, and and floods at the same time. We've got the hottest month ever, and then we've got a 16-year-old girl who's sort of calling out the world and telling us that we need to panic and that we need to do something. And the poor kids are doing more about this in a more notable way than a lot of the adults. We've got Adani. The possibility of having more coal of that magnitude dug up and burnt is just, it can't happen. It just can't happen. We've got, David Attenborough saying, where are the leaders? Why don't you provide it? 1,500 people jetted into Davos to hear him speak, and you're kind of going, there's a problem there. There's people aren't kind of getting it together. We've got, we're still building stupid cities where, at the moment we're putting in this West Connects, we're putting in freeways when we don't want people to be driving. We want people to get around, but there are better ways of doing it. And then we've got, the real prospect that we are going to shoot through 1.5 degree temperature rise. But there is hope, which is good. I think Bill McKibben's new film is out. It's fantastic, and he highlights the problems, but says, yes, there's hope. The mutually assured salvation is George Monibot has got some really interesting examples of really good things that are happening. Jacinda Ardern, I think we've all got to go and live in New Zealand or get her to come over here. Unfortunately, Australians are actually demanding energy efficient homes. I think Australians are getting it. This hot weather and these other things are saying we need more action, we need good things. And then of course Renew is doing great things with Sanctuary on water and heating, making houses comfortable without air conditioning. Sheffield is a city in the UK who's actually declared a climate emergency. So they're saying, no, this is really, really serious and we need to really, really do stuff seriously. And, you know, while the federal government isn't supporting renewables, Australians are just getting on and doing it, and we're speeding ahead. So there are really some really good things happening. And, you know, and then there's sort of things like, there's a lot of really, really simple solutions. Let's just go and plant a whole lot more trees and make the whole place a whole lot cooler and more gorgeous and just better. So I think we've got to kind of really get our heads around not being depressed and getting on with really good, simple things. Because I think we do need to take care. And I think part of my transition was I was really feeling concerned, like really concerned, and thinking, what do I need to do to make things happen? I love this sort of thing from Banksy, that sometimes if you get tired, you just need to rest. Don't give up. And I think that's really, really good advice. And I love these New Year's resolutions, and this is part of what I want to transition in to: less stuff, more time, better coffee, deeper reading, more sunrises, frequent naps, longer singing, worse dancing, balanced work, better planning, stranger meetings, longer parties, less anger, more wonder, more hope, and no regrets. And that's, I think, some really good ideas for what life can and should be about. I've also been really impressed, sorry about this isn't so clear, but biomimicry 3.8 is the 3.8 billion years of research that have gone into these principles, and what works is what's here. And I think that they've got some really beautiful principles about how to be in life, you know, adapting to changing conditions, evolve to survive, integrate development with growth, be resource efficient, use life-friendly chemistry, and be locally attuned and responsive. I'll come back to those, but there's some really great advice. There's a lot of stuff out there, you've just got to work out how to find it. And I think also, you know, I love this photo of these two fabulous women, but what you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And every day you make those decisions, and every decision counts. And I think that's really important to kind of go, okay, how do I make those decisions count in the way, what do I want to achieve, and how do I make those count? So, how's this looking for me? These are some of those things that came out of biomimicry 3.8, and the ones in blue are the ones that are particularly, I have chimed with my heart, you know. I suppose, adapt to changing conditions, incorporate diversity, maintain integrity through self-renewal, resilience through variation, redundancy and decentralisation, be locally attuned and responsive, you know, use readily available materials and energy, and cultivate cooperative relationships, really important one, use low energy processes, and then evolve to survive, replicate strategies that work, and integrate the unexpected, and then build selectively with small subset of elements and combine modular and nested components. There's some really beautiful ideas there that it's really worth having a look at. Plus, so part of all of that is I wanted to make a really big difference. I wanted to kind of be involved with people and do things that are really important. And middle of the last year, I actually joined the Renew board. And I think that the Renew organisation is so exciting and so well placed to do really, really excellent stuff. And I love the new brand of Renew, because that is what we all need to do. And it's just such a positive take on what we can and should be doing. So the new mission and sort of, I suppose, plan is based on these three. Well, apart from supporting over 250,000 people to live more sustainably, the three main things are to inspiring change, enabling change, and advocating for change. And I think that that is just a super exciting place to be. So, you know, part of inspiring change are all these fabulous events they have: Sustainable House Day, Speed Data Sustainability Expert, which Graham mentioned before, and Electric Vehicle Expo. So it's just really helping people understand how to live lives better, and in a really simple way. The magazines, I think, are some of the best magazines in Australia, and if you don't subscribe to them, do, because they're one of the few magazines where I actually read the ads as well as the articles, because they've got lots of great ideas and things. And the new website, which has just been developed, has got so many resources there that are really accessible and really fantastic, and great staff driving all of this. Enabling change. There's a whole bunch of research that is happening, which is great, and connecting with other people doing research. There's advisory services for households and advisory services for community groups, companies and government. So it's sort of finding the knowledge and then helping people implement that in a correct way. Advocating for change is also really critical, and they're really busy at the moment advocating particularly for better houses and getting the building code. Like when I came, there wasn't any energy policy in the building code, and we got that in at a low level, but now it needs to be really cranked up. And I think even though it's been a really hot and terrible summer, great, because I think everyone's mind is focused on, gosh, our houses and our buildings need to perform better than they are. But there's advocacy, community and partnerships, because working with a whole lot of people, you don't have to do everything all yourself. And I think Renew is really excellent at connecting with different other groups and sort of leveraging what they can do. So this is particularly important in this climate resilient homes, and really working hard to push that. And it's such an important time before the election to be getting that information out. And why it's urgent? 51%, this is a fantastic statistic, 51% of Australia's buildings in 2050 will be built after this year. So if we want 50% of 51%, we've got a lot of work to do to make sure those 51% are the best they can be. And I think that that there's a whole lot of information, like you'll see, and why? Because people die from heat and die from cold, and it's also it doesn't have to cost a whole lot more to make buildings much smarter and much better. And I think we've got to refocus our attention on how to put that emphasis into smart and good rather than big and useless. So we do have solutions, but we need regulation, incentives and consumer education, and I think Renew is so well placed to deliver on all of that, and I'm thrilled to be able to be part of that. Vision to create a world in which communities thrive in a way that does not cost the earth, which is a great, great vision. Another group that I'm very involved with and is called 1 Million Women, and I love 1 Million Women because it is about empowering women to make good choices every day in small decisions, and then feel more empowered to make even more decisions. And men can also use our app and do other things. It's not just exclusively, but women do make 70% of the household buying choices. So I'm just going to play a little on it. And also, don't underestimate the power of women supporting each other, either at work or anywhere else. And I think that it's interesting to see that the Liberal Party at the moment doesn't seem to get this message, and I think they do that at their peril, because the women will work a way around it. Now,
before we get much older. We're all someone's daughter. We're all someone's son. Someone's son. Oh, can we look at each other down the barrel of a gun? Down the barrel. Oh, you're the voice trying to understand it. Making
great organisation. I'm thrilled to be chair of it. We're celebrating 10 years this year. We're going to have a fantastic event on 25th of May at Carriageworks. Nissan are a key sponsor, and they've given us a leaf cart, a raffle, so we'll be raffling that, so stay tuned, and a whole lot of other really exciting things will be happening. And the app is on its way. Developing an app is not a simple task, and so it's currently a whole lot of bugs are being ironed out, and that is an app that anyone can use, male, females, and it's got lots and lots of fantastic advice on just everything from what to buy, what to cook, how to minimise waste, what to do in your garden, etc. It's going to be a really terrific. Biophilia, I mentioned this before. This is something that's giving me a lot of inspiration and a lot of real joy. It was interesting. Someone said to me that they hate the word biophilia because it feels like it's white men taking over Indigenous knowledge and understanding and ways of being in the world. And I thought, oh, you're possibly right, because it is actually, that's a lot of what it's about. So whatever, but it's a term that's going on, and so that's something I am struggling with at the moment, but I'm not struggling with what biophilia is about. And I think that biophilia there's some beautiful stuff about biophilia at the moment, articles on what it is and what it can be and how it can transform people, and the whole idea of gardening, is about really connecting with nature and finding such enrichment and joy through that. I think that we've all got to learn our country better, and Bruce Pascoe has written Dark Emu. If you've not read it, you've got to read it. It's fantastic. But we've also got to learn Aboriginal names of where we are, because that's where we're living. And then there's some beautiful articles about, Michelle Holiday wrote this one about blackberries, and it's just about really understanding and getting into, when you get into a nature, you learn stuff you never thought you would, and that's a great thing. I really truly believe we are totally inspired by, or I am, we are inspired in nature. And I think Stephen Kellett, who is one of the great people promoting taking the idea of biophilia and spreading it, the values of biophilia require that we seek to harmonise nature with humanity if we are to achieve a safe, a just, secure, sustainable, fulfilling and loving future, which I think is what we all want. Rachel Carson from Silent Spring said, the more clearly we focus our attention on the wonders and realities of the universe about us, the less taste we shall have for its destruction. We've got to love nature more. And the principles developed by Kellett and Calabresi are really gorgeous and just describe the sort of buildings, the sort of way I want to be in the world. A biophilic design fosters a repeated and sustained engagement with nature. What a great place to work that is, rather than sort of a window, just a windowless or just a horrible internal space that we often see. Biophilic design focuses on human adaptations to the natural world that over evolutionary time have advanced people's health, fitness and well-being. Biophilic design encourages an emotional attachment to particular settings and places. Biophilic promotes positive interactions between people and nature that encourage an expanded sense of responsibility and stewardship for the human and natural communities. And biophilic design encourages mutually reinforcing, interconnected and integrated architectural and engineered solutions. And I think those are such strong principles that really are wonderful to guide any architecture that we have. So First Steps Count is a project that I'm continuing to be involved with. It's a family and community centre in Taree. It's going to be a one-stop shop for families experiencing difficulty, many of whom are Indigenous. And basically right now, a family might go to a doctor and they'll say, well, you should go and see the physiotherapist in that town, you should go and see someone over here and someone over here, and they don't, because one, they don't have a car, and two, they can't get there. And so they just don't, and they don't get the help they can and should have. So this is about a place where those consultants will come and consult from this place. And we've designed it to be sort of a really beautiful place that families will want to come and just hang out in, and oh, by the way, they might get some attention and services. We're going to have bush tucker gardens, we're going to have community gardens, we're going to have outdoor spaces and indoor spaces, and hopefully it will be incredibly beautiful. It's right next to a childcare centre and a school, and it opens up into this bush, which we need to, which we're going to kind of work with. And I'm really hoping we might be able to get Bruce Pascoe to help us work out how to turn that into a really responsive, Indigenous responsive landscape. The best news is we're going to make this a Living Building Challenge project, and so I don't know if any of you know what Living Building Challenge is, but it's a visionary path to a regenerative future. It suggests that every act of development should be positive and regenerative, not less bad, but actually really good. And so it, in achieving that, it uses the metaphor of a flower. A flower finds its own place in the world. It creates all its own energy, gets its own water, has its own nutrients. It produces no pollution, and it's beautiful. And that's kind of what we think our buildings should be like. And so there are 7 petals and 20 imperatives that help make this. It's not easy to do, but I think challenges are always really great to take on because I think they help you get to places you never thought you could do. Whereas incremental change is kind of much harder because it's just, who cares? Whereas challenges, it's like I'm going to the moon. People went, shit, how do you do that? But they did it because it was such a challenge. And just this January 16, after I've been working on this project for 10 years, and just this January, the New South Wales government finally confirmed a commitment of $2.5 million to the project. And we've got Vincent Fairfax Foundation to put another $1 million. We're still looking for a bit more, but we figure we've got enough to really go, and we're really just starting on that right now, which will be really exciting. I'm also working on a net zero energy home in Mossman, of all places, a fabulous client, and that's just started under construction, and so that'll be great. That's more just finishing off a project. I'm not doing so many more houses in the future. I want to get more involved in, like say with Taree, I've actually replaced myself as architect with some other architects, one of whom used to work for me, and they are based in Wingham and Sydney, and so they're local people and they've done schools and they're going to be fantastic, and I'm moving into a sustainability guide role there. And this one it started a while ago and I'm finishing off because the client is so gorgeous. And this is a very nascent collaboration, which is sort of an example of the things I really want to be doing going forward. Michael Mobbs contacted, we had lunch just before Christmas, and we talked about this idea of doing he was approached by someone up in the Tweed to look at giving advice on small, smart, sustainable housing. And we were talking, and so I took a ride with him up on a train up to Murwillumbah, and we kind of came up with this idea for how to possibly do more small, smart, sustainable homes. And it was a terrific, and we're not quite sure where this is going, but we're really, I think we've got to think smarter and better about how to do these sorts of things. And connect with people. Like that's where someone said to me, why have I stopped practicing architecture in the traditional sense? I don't have an office, I don't have staff, so I'm really aiming to be agile and nimble and able to move around and connect with people where I can and do other things and not be doing so much project-based because you kind of get locked into a place and a time and all of that, but need more strategic in developing these ideas and then work with other people to help implement them when they need to be implemented. So some personal things that I'm doing, because I think that's really important that you do look after yourself. So the train, I mentioned the train. Who knew that New South Wales government has a discovery pass on the train? And so I've bought a 3-month discovery pass, $400 for unlimited first-class travel on trains from Brisbane to Melbourne for 3 months. So I thought, I'm going to try this out. A woman I met, she gets a 6-month pass and does it all the time. And I thought, the secret to it was, she said, you've got to change your time frame, your frame of mind. Don't regard that time as a waste of time, turn it into work time. So she takes her computer onto the train. It's got 7 hours battery, because of course there's no charging or Wi-Fi on the trains. That'd be a bit clever, wouldn't it? But she sits there and she works till her computer dies, and then she goes, okay, now it's my time, and then she gets out a book and she reads. And she can get up and she can walk around, and she just said it's a different way. So Michael Mobbs and I sort of took a train up to Casino and then a bus to Kingscliff, but and we spent the whole day talking about what this project might be, what it could be, what it wouldn't be, and a whole lot of things. And we actually, and on the way back we got the night train, but we almost got the report written on the way back, and it was a terrific journey, and it wasn't a waste of time. And then since then we went down to Melbourne last week, and we had to fly down because of a timing thing, but I caught the train back and spent the day writing and reading and having a great time. And it's kind of, with my earphones on, so I was a bit, it was fantastic. So I think we've got to, those choices about how energy intensive our transport is. I do fly and I feel terrible, and I think I've got to find ways of reducing it when I can and still being connected. It's not about not going anywhere and closing down, it's about finding better ways of connecting. Right now I'm part of this fantastic thing where it's called Surf February, raising money for the Chris O'Brien's Lifehouse at the hospital just up here. And the tough thing is you've got to go swimming every single day in February. So I am thoroughly enjoying this and working my way through a whole lot of beautiful places that I know and love to swim in. I'm also I went to a fantastic bush tucker garden workshop because I want to do more gardening this year, held at the Camperdown, what's it called, the area, Pocket City Farms. Yeah, it's got another name, that Acre or something, is it? Yeah, anyway. And this woman, Narelle, who knows everything about bush tucker food, was fantastic. I'm going for walks in nature because I do find that really restorative. I've just joined the local choir, which is great, and I'm loving cooking and enjoying sort of making healthy and wonderful food. So I am doing a few other things. I sort of forgot that, I'm sitting on the Sydney Olympic Park Authority Design Review panel, which is obviously rather controversial at the moment, but there are good people out there, and I think a lot of what's in the press is probably not 100% true. And the Liverpool Design Excellence panel. So I think bringing a whole lot of sustainability and good design ideas to places like that is something that I'm really enjoying doing as well.